Imagine a time long before cities, kingdoms, or even spoken language. A time when glaciers sculpted the earth like silent giants, and thick forests hid creatures we've never seen. The world 100,000 years ago was raw, untamed, and full of mystery. And in this wilderness, our story begins, not just with Homo sapiens, but with an entire caste of ancient humans who once walked beside us. Among them, a forgotten cousin whose presence flickered in and out of view for centuries, until a single bone changed everything. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals, because what you're about to hear may completely shift your view of human history. Our ancestors, small bands of curious wanderers, had already begun their journey out of Africa. They moved through harsh deserts, climbed rugged mountains, and even crossed seas on fragile rafts made of logs and vines. They weren't the only ones out there. Across the cold plains of Siberia and deep inside caves hidden beneath snowy peaks, another human lineage lived, one that we never knew existed, until the discovery of a tiny pinky bone in a cave known as Denisova. That's right, a single fragment, buried beneath layers of time, tucked inside the cold shadows of the Denisova cave, carried within it the genetic whisper of an entire lost species. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button to stay with us as we piece together this ancient mystery. When scientists examined the DNA from that finger bone, they were stunned. It didn't belong to Neanderthals, it didn't match early Homo sapiens. It belonged to a new group, close relatives of Neanderthals, but different, Denisovans. What's remarkable is how much information that small piece of bone held. It revealed not only a new name in our family tree, but a forgotten web of ancient connections, hidden for thousands of years in our very blood. Modern people living in places like Papua New Guinea, Australia, and parts of Southeast Asia carry traces of Denisovan DNA in their bodies even today. In fact, some populations have up to 4% of their genome from these ancient cousins. And just think, that's not from bones or tools, but from the legacy they left in our genes. Subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals now if you're fascinated by how ancient encounters still shape who we are. As we follow the trail of these elusive ancestors, we travel to a time when the Earth looked very different. During the Pleistocene epoch, sea levels dropped, land bridges appeared, and islands we now see as scattered jewels in the ocean were once part of vast, connected continents. It was across this shifting terrain that our ancestors encountered the Denisovans. These meetings weren't always battles for territory. Sometimes they were peaceful. Sometimes they led to something more intimate, interbreeding. That's how Denisovan genes found their way into our DNA. These weren't brief, one-off encounters. They were moments that stretched across generations, altering the course of human evolution. So if this ancient tapestry of migration and mingling fascinates you, make sure to stay tuned and subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals. The Denisovans weren't confined to one region. Genetic evidence shows they moved widely, from the freezing north to the tropical forests of the south. But unlike Neanderthals, whose fossils are scattered across Europe and Western Asia, Denisovan remains are few and far between. Most of what we know about them comes from genetic data. This is partly because tropical environments, where many Denisovans likely lived, are bad at preserving bones. Heat, moisture, and acidic soil break down remains quickly. That's why places like Denisova Cave are so important. Cold, dry, and stable, they protect what the world tries to erase. Still, despite the lack of bones, their genetic footprints are everywhere. Imagine that, a people who vanished physically, but whose legacy lives in millions of modern humans. Don't miss the rest of this story.
Tap the subscribe button and stay with us.
And here's where it gets even more intriguing. Modern Tibetans, who thrive in high altitudes where oxygen is scarce, carry a gene that helps their blood absorb oxygen more efficiently. That gene comes from the Denisovans. Think about that. A prehistoric encounter tens of thousands of years ago gave people today the ability to survive on the roof of the world. These are not just dusty facts from textbooks. They are living proof of how ancient humans adapted, shared, and evolved together. The more we learn, the more we realize that survival didn't come from isolation. It came from connection. This is why Prehistoric Medievals exists, to tell the real stories of who we are and how deeply rooted our history truly is. Subscribe now and be part of this journey through deep time. But who exactly were these Denisovans? What did they look like? How did they live? We still don't know for sure. All we have are clues, DNA sequences, a few scattered fossils, and hints found in the genetic material of people alive today. Yet every new piece of evidence brings us closer. Some traits suggest they were adapted to cold climates. Others hint at strong jaws or specific dietary habits. What's certain is that they were resourceful, resilient, and successful enough to influence populations thousands of miles away. They didn't just survive, they contributed to the future. And their story isn't over yet. In fact, it's only just beginning. So if you're as captivated as we are, subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals and get ready for Part 2, where we uncover even deeper secrets of our shared past. To understand the Denisovan impact more deeply, we have to travel farther, into the scattered islands and dense jungles of Southeast Asia. This region, rich with biodiversity and shaped by volcanic activity, was once a crossroads of human evolution. Land bridges created by falling sea levels allowed ancient humans to travel from the Asian mainland into places like Java, Sumatra, and the Philippines. And it's here that we begin to find even more mysterious traces. Evidence of other ancient humans like Homo erectus, Homo floresiensis, and Homo luzonensis, all living at some point side by side. But when scientists analyze modern DNA from these regions, it's not those species that left their mark. It's the Denisovans, which raises the question, what happened to all the others? Keep watching and make sure you're subscribed to Prehistoric Medievals, because this part of the story is where things get even more fascinating.
The most striking genetic influence comes from modern populations in Papua New Guinea and Australia. In some of these groups, up to 5% of their DNA is Denisovan in origin. That's a huge number. And it means that as Homo sapiens moved into these regions, they weren't just replacing older populations, they were merging with them, forming families, having children, and blending gene pools. The Denisovans, though mostly invisible in the fossil record, left their fingerprints all over the genetic map. It's likely that different Denisovan groups lived across Asia, evolving separately over time. One group in Siberia, another in the tropical south, and the DNA evidence supports that idea. Modern Denisovan ancestry in Southeast Asia looks different from what we see in the Denisova cave specimen. That means multiple waves, multiple encounters, multiple moments that reshaped who we are. To follow every twist in this ancient web, don't forget to subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals. But how could such an influential group disappear so completely from the surface of history? One explanation lies in the nature of the tropics themselves. Unlike the caves of Europe or the frozen tundras of the north, the humid forests and acidic soils of Southeast Asia destroy bones quickly. Fossils vanish, tools degrade, even large bones dissolve before they can be discovered. So while Homo erectus skulls are found in Java and Neanderthal sites are scattered across Europe, Denisovan remains may have simply been erased by time. That's why the Denisova cave find was so extraordinary. It gave scientists a chance to see what would otherwise be invisible. And what they found wasn't just new, it was revolutionary. Make sure you're subscribed to Prehistoric Medievals, because these are the kinds of discoveries that redefine what it means to be human. Let's go back to Java for a moment. There, along the Solo River, a group of skulls was discovered in the 1930s. Skulls that sparked debates lasting nearly a century. These skulls didn't quite fit any known category. They were too advanced to be pure Homo erectus, but too archaic to be modern humans. Some researchers believe they represent the population of Denisovan human hybrids. Others argue they're a distinct human branch entirely. But the truth may be somewhere in between. The region was a melting pot of ancient humanity. Homo erectus likely lived there for over 1 million years. When Denisovans arrived, the two groups may have interbred, producing children with mixed features. Some inherited from the robust bodies of erectus, others from the adapted genes of Denisovans. This hybrid population could have survived until Homo sapiens arrived and altered the balance once more. If you want more deep history stories like this, be sure to stay subscribed to Prehistoric Medievals. And this wasn't the only time such blending occurred. Across prehistoric Eurasia, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and early Homo sapiens encountered each other again and again. Sometimes they fought, sometimes they traded, but sometimes they formed families. And that's where our story circles back to today. Many of the traits we think of as uniquely human, our resistance to certain diseases, our ability to thrive at altitude, even some aspects of metabolism, are shaped by those ancient unions. For example, the Bajau people of Southeast Asia, sea nomads who die for minutes at a time without breathing, carry a gene that enlarges their spleens, increasing oxygen storage. That gene may trace back to Denisovan ancestry, a gift from the past that helps people thrive in extreme environments. Subscribe now to Prehistoric Medievals to keep discovering the real origins of traits we carry today. Or take the Sherpa people of the Himalayas, who live and work at altitudes that would leave most gasping for air. Their high-altitude resilience also comes from a Denisovan gene variant, one that regulates oxygen use more efficiently. This isn't ancient history in a book, it's biology in your body. It's a prehistoric inheritance that still shapes how people live and survive in the modern world. Even the foods our bodies process better, like tubers or seafood, can trace their roots to the diets of Denisovan sapien hybrids. And when people today take genetic tests and find out they carry Denisovan DNA, it's not just trivia. It's a direct connection to someone who lived, loved, and walked this earth 50,000 years ago. Someone whose story didn't end. It just became part of yours. If that doesn't give you chills, subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals and join us as we bring more lost ancestors back into the light.
So what does it all mean? It means that our human story isn't a straight road with one beginning and one end. It's a vast, tangled web, a series of overlapping journeys, collisions, and shared destinies. Denisovans didn't vanish, they merged. Their genes didn't disappear, they live on. And that's the deeper message behind all of this. Evolution didn't reward isolation. It rewarded connection. The very diversity that defines us today was shaped by ancient cooperation and mingling. In a world increasingly divided, this lesson from the past is more important than ever. We're all part of the same story. The Denisovans are not just prehistoric shadows, they are family. Their memory lives not in fossils, but in faces, in blood, and in the resilience of those who walk the earth today. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Subscribe to Prehistoric Medievals for more stories that reveal who we really are and how far we've come together.